Hey guys, welcome to 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description. And here's what I need you to do. Make sure you subscribe to the Volumes YouTube channel to stay up to date to everything we're doing here on 3 and Out and the Volume. 3 and Out podcast, Sunday night, just watched a pretty crazy game. Steelers, Chargers, SoFi Stadium does look pretty sweet. You know, it really has worked out pretty well in Los Angeles. Well, for everyone except Stan Kroenke, because the city of St. Louis wants about $1 billion, and he's freaking out and trying to get it. That's a whole nother story, but the stadium is cool. Game was fun. We'll dive into just an overall thought, and really, I thought tonight was kind of symbolic of that as well. Just from the last couple weeks of the NFL, two coaches, after, some rough starts, at least for them, are coming storming back. And I think with this extra game, no one really plays in the preseason. I said this earlier. I said this last week. I've been saying this my entire life. Cream always rises. And now with this extra game, it might take you a little longer to get loose. Might take you a little longer to figure things out. But the same guys are at the top. And it's not going to change definitely this year. And then some thoughts on college football. Watched a lot of college football yesterday. Oregon got smashed. Ohio State's coming. How this whole Final Four is going to play out, we'll dive into that as well. Thanksgiving schedule. I think I'm going to do a big mailbag for Friday. So I'll decide whether I do one for Tuesday show. Probably still sprinkle in a little bit. And then I'll have one for Friday. And then, of course, we'll have Stuckey on the weekend. So I guess not much changes for you guys. Might be a little shorter version on Friday. I know a lot of people with their families. Black Friday, even though, if you're listening to this, you're probably a little younger. We're more Cyber Monday type guys. Like, I ain't waiting freaking line somewhere to get clothes or TVs or whatever. Like, I'm an internet shopper, we're millennials. I type in my credit card to the interweb and I buy whatever I want. Well, not totally, because I don't have an unlimited amount of money, but when I want something on the internet, I purchase it. Now, I'm not doing brick and mortars. Those days are slowly coming to an end, though I do appreciate the small businesses. So if you're listening to this small business owner, keep crushing. And I would support you if you had good products or something I needed. I would just like to order it off the internet. But let's start into the entire league. It's been a little bit of a crazy year. And I remember years ago, Coward used to have this thing about parity and how a lot of people talk about how they want it, but it's never true. And it used to happen a lot in college football. Everyone wanted Boise to get in, and they would always take SEC teams. Everyone talked in baseball about like the little engine that could the Tampa Bay Rays. Yet the Red Sox and the Yankees truly, resonated and rated when they're on television. Like, listen, parity is very risky. You do want your league to be top heavy with stars. I think right now what the NFL is getting, though, is the best of both worlds. I would say for the majority of the last 2 decades, you could chalk in 2 or 3 people to the championship games, right? Belichick and Brady, they went to like 13 championship games together. They went to 9 Super Bowls. Peyton Manning went to a ton of championship games, right? And same with Roethlisberger. So the same people were going over and over and over again, even though it always felt like in football, unlike in basketball, like you're playing Kobe and Shaq, you're playing Steph and Kevin Durant in a playoff series, it's going to be hard to beat them, right? Where in football, even if you are playing Brady or you are playing Peyton Manning or you are playing Aaron Rodgers, it's a one-off situation. You can beat them. It's what makes the sport so special. It is basically March Madness. Just one game. You lose, you're gone. But this year, more than any that I can remember, is the NFL is getting the best of both worlds. When you look at the teams that are going to the playoffs, the AFC, Belichick, Mahomes and Andy, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, all the best players are going to go in the AFC and the best coaches. John Harbaugh, Mike Vrabel. You look at the NFC, Kyler Murray, the Rams, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. They're all going to go to the playoffs. We know it's basically a lock. All these teams are going to be there in early January. But unlike any of the seasons before, I have no clue who is going to win playoff games, let alone be in the conference championship game. Which, for a sport that, let's face it, while there always are new teams in the playoffs, for the most part, you knew who was going to be, at least in the championship games, on a given season by now. We have absolutely no clue. If I told you the AFC championship game is Ravens versus the Bills. That's believable. If I told you it's Colts versus the Patriots, believable. If I told you the NFC Championship is Cardinals versus the Rams, believable. If I told you it's Rodgers versus, hell, the 49ers, who knows? I have absolutely no clue who is going to be in the second round of the playoffs, let alone the championship games, let alone who can win the Super Bowl. And I think for the first time in a long, long time, we go, it is truly wide open. Now, with 10 teams, but any one of those 10 teams, if you're an Arizona Cardinal fan, you go, if Kyler gets healthy, we got a chance. If you're a Tampa Bay Bucks fan, it's like, we can repeat. If you're a Packer fan, you just go, we got to figure this out, but we got Aaron Rodgers, we got a shot. I can say the same thing about the Patriots, the Chiefs, the Ravens, the Titans. If they get Derrick Henry back in January, which I think there was a report, and to me, that's cool. Right? Part of the best, like one of the coolest parts about March Madness is typically the 1 and 2 seeds are dramatically better than the 7 and 8 seeds. But every single year, we see these upsets in the Sweet 16, in the Elite 8, definitely in the Final Four. And it's riveting. Now, we see this sometimes in football. It's obviously happened in some of those years I were talking about. The Patriots and Belichick and Brady did not even always make it to the championship game. Rex Ryan took them out once upon a time. Like, they have been beaten. But it was always shocking when it happened. I don't think anything's going to be that shocking when any of these teams, there aren't going to be that many situations once the playoffs come with big spreads. There aren't going to be like in the second round, it's all going to be like 2 and 3 point spreads. No one is going to be like 6, 7, injury and COVID withstanding. And to me, that makes this season really cool because it's been weird. I mentioned on Friday's podcast, I'm like, I think Indy could play with the Bills. I wouldn't be shocked if that's a tight game. I didn't expect to look up and it'd be 41-15 and the Colts kick their ass on the road in Buffalo. Didn't see that one coming. Like, listen, you have your backup quarterback who makes $1.2 million and you say, listen, Kyler's going to miss 3 games. What's going to happen? I would say it's going to be hard for them to win 1 game. They won 2 games on the road in the division. I got to give the Arizona Cardinals a lot of credit. I've talked a lot of shit over the years about Kingsbury. Now, I was thinking about this weekend. It's just the offense. I fundamentally oppose, spread soft offenses. Even though I acknowledge in certain situations it works. But fundamentally, philosophically, I don't align. But I'll be the first to admit when it's working and when they're doing a good job, they've been awesome. I tip my hat to Kingsbury winning 2 road division games with his backup quarterback. The Baltimore Ravens, Lamar Jackson's got diarrhea or something. He's all sick, not corona, and they got to play Tyler Huntley, who I didn't even think was that good in college. And to go on the road, I don't care who you're playing, but to find a way to win that game, like John Harbaugh and Greg Rowe, that's a hell of a win. It really is. But then how weird, like you look up and the Titans are getting their ass kicked by the Texans, right? And this is the other thing. With these extra games, right, or I guess the extra game, and the preseason, no one plays, sometimes it takes a little bit longer, right? Some teams, like the Chiefs, you have a little bit of a hangover, right? You've been in the Super Bowl the last couple years, you won it, then you lost it kind of in devastating fashion, and you just get off to this weird start. The Patriots have all these new players. They sign all these guys in free agency. They have a rookie quarterback. And we talked about last week what these coaches make, right? Belichick's making 20. It says Andy's 12. I'd be shocked if he's not making over 15 because if he's not, he's underpaid. But I was thinking like any coach, any human being, any relationship can handle good times, right? It's easy to be happy on your honeymoon. It's easy to celebrate in the locker room when you win a game by 20 points. You and I can do that, right? It's very, very, very easy. Do you know what's hard? Is adversity, is dealing with problems. And do you know the reason that guys like Andy and Bill Belichick make so much money? Of course they're great coaches, and they can scheme up, and they're great leaders of men, but they handle things the best when shit hits the fan. Patriots started 1-3. The Chiefs is like, is their dynasty over? No. They've won a combined 9 games together. And when you look at the AFC, you go, you think anyone's going to want to play Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes? Do you think there's a soul in the NFL that's going to want to play Belichick in a playoff game? These teams are coming. And I think sometimes now especially teams that have new players, teams that have more veteran teams. I think we have to look at September a little bit differently moving forward, is that's going to act like the new preseason. So to me, if you can just start and not put yourself in like an 0-4, 0-5 hole, if you have an elite coach, if you have good players, you're not out of it. Because you're going to start getting your rhythm in October and then November. The Chiefs are a great example of that. Their defense sucks. And I'm probably guilty of saying that. And hell, I've texted with people there that, when it was trouble, and it's like, God, we can't tackle anyone. And it was true. Like, they were not playing good defense. But the last 3 games, now I understand they played Jordan Love, but they held him to 7 points. And let's face it, it was basically 0 till about 4 minutes left in the game. Got a garbage time touchdown. The Raiders held to 14 points, and it felt like less. Today, against the Cowboys, granted missing Amari Cooper, but last time I checked, they have reinforcements. Held them to 9 points. So 2 of their last 3 games have been single digits, and then against the Raiders, it wasn't even 14. Honestly, it felt like single digits. If the Chiefs are going to play good defense, and I don't think, unlike the Patriots, have basically on all 3 levels really good players. They're better than the Patriots on defense. But if the Chiefs can find a way to just be like a fringe top half of the league level defense, and that's the way they're playing right now, they're going to be hell to deal with. And they're coming because Andy's elite, Patrick's elite, their offense is too good. The only question with them is their defense. Just like with the Patriots, it's going to be, can they be explosive enough on offense? We know their defense is really good. Can Mac Jones? What's going to happen? And we're going to find out. The Patriots play Josh Allen 2 of their next 4 games. And we know Josh hasn't had a great season. Is it just simply like too much pressure with all the money? I don't know. But they're just not the same. Like, they're too talented to be playing this poorly. They're too talented to get bent over by the Indianapolis Colts. That should not happen. And I think the Colts are good. The Colts are going to the playoffs. The Colts are going to the playoffs. You can put that in Sharpie right now. They are a playoff team. And back to what I was first saying, like, once the playoff starts, every single game, a 7 can beat a 2. A 6 can beat a 3. It's going to be on like Donkey Kong. If Tennessee and Arizona, we still got a long way to go, are your number 1 seeds, like, and they're good, and especially Arizona, they've proven it. But they wouldn't be a lock to win a playoff game. They'd be favored. They'd be at home. And if you're the 1 seed, you get the bye. It's a huge advantage. But it's going to be as wide open as I can remember. And I'll tell you this. I just don't see myself betting against Belichick and Andy when we get in that situation. I just don't. The resume speaks for itself. And the way they're playing, how it's going, as the season, it gets important. Are we going to look up and the Chiefs going to win the AFC West by a couple games? Now, the Chargers did pull that game. We're able to win it, so they're still, right behind them by, I guess, a game. I guess they have the same amount of losses. The Chiefs have 7 wins. But it's just feels like the Ravens with today are going to find a way to win that division. But today was weird yet really, really fun. It really Justin Jefferson, oh my God. That guy, what a star. What a bona fide superstar that guy is. We got a playoff game next week at Levi Stadium. 49ers, Minnesota. Playoffs come early in November. Let's strap it up and get it on. College football. It pains me to say this. I have a soft spot for Pac-12 football. Obviously from out here. Been watching it my whole life. Grew up going to games at Memorial Stadium at Berkeley. Was a big UCLA football fan growing up. But the conference is absolutely terrible. And a huge polarizing discussion had been leading up to, Oregon and Ohio State. Should Ohio State jump Oregon? And let's face it, if you had eyes, even if you were an Oregon fan, everyone would admit Ohio State had been playing better than Oregon for easily a month plus. But I did agree with everyone that took the point. Why do we play the games? They played the game and they beat them. That has to count for something. Same thing with Michigan and Michigan State. Like, you can say Michigan's resume is better, but they played each other and Michigan State won. What's the point of ever playing if when I play you and I beat you or I lose to you, we count everything else? That has to count the most. I've always agreed with that. But if you just took a deep breath, took an unbiased opinion, you went, well, right now if they played, Ohio State would have been like a 10-point favorite, right? And we saw it play out. Ohio State kept kicking everyone's ass. C.J. Stroud threw like 17 touchdowns in the first half against Michigan State. And Oregon got their just teeth kicked in by Utah. And Kyle Whittingham is the best coach in the conference. It's probably not really close, right? And he took Mario Cristobal to the woodshed in a massive game for Mario. It was huge. And this is a guy that, listen, I used to be critical of him. I've come around. He's an excellent recruiter. And they have a ton of talent on the team. Their quarterback's kind of questionable, but they'll have a younger guy in next year. But he's being talked about like the heir apparent to Nick Saban at Alabama. Like a no-brainer for like LSU would be all over him. And I don't know. Like, I think he's good, and he's done well out here. The competition's not great. Do I just think he would go to LSU and win? Like, yeah, they always recruit well. Part of his point of differentiation out on the West Coast is he's recruiting like it's LSU, Alabama, or Ohio State. No one recruits like that out here. So he has better talent. Yet when he gets in a scheme match against Kyle Whittingham, who, like I said, best coach out West, and one of the best moves the Pac-12 ever made. Because when they let Utah and Colorado into the conference, you would have said over the next 10 years, I bet Colorado will develop into a better program. They've been in the Big 12 before. It makes a lot of sense. Utah's become, and I tweeted this out, like they've become a flagship program. I don't mean they're the flagship program. That's Oregon or USC. But they're on that level. They've competed with those two programs. And a huge part of that is because of Kyle Whittingham, who's taken his program to a completely different level. And that was just a shellacking. The other thing that I saw, Dan Mullen was fired from Florida. I talk about this all the time, and we discuss this with the college, with the NFL salaries, is Dan Mullen got a raise last year. He won the East, lost to Alabama in the SEC championship game. He was making $7.5 million at Florida. Probably, if Alabama's 1, Georgia's 2, I'm just talking about the prominence of programs, and LSU would be 3. Florida's not even a top 3 program currently in the SEC, and they were paying their coach $7.5 million. Yet out on the West Coast, a couple weeks ago, I was reading an article, UCLA was complaining about paying Chip Kelly $4 million. Now, I wouldn't want Chip Kelly as my head coach. I wouldn't want to pay him $4 million. But you can't complain about paying football coaches $4 million in 2021. If you want to compete with, I don't know, Michigan State's paying Mel Tucker however much, 10-year deal, $95 million. Florida's paying their coach $7.5 million. We know Saban and Kirby and LSU's going to pay huge cash. LSU would pay Lincoln Riley $10 million right now if he'd take it. So beside Mario, who's making good money because he's won the conference a couple times, and, they're the big-time program, no one else on the West Coast pays any money. And they're always like, Jimmy Lake just got fired. University of Washington, which in theory should be like a top 5 West Coast program, they were paying the guy $3 million, which, the most, I would take $3 million, right? I would imagine many people listening would take $3 million. But in the coaching world of high-end Power 5 jobs, that's not very much money. And the Pac-12 has been lapped by these other conferences financially. The SEC and the Big Ten can pay so much cash. I'm also not going to beat a dead horse because I've talked about this a lot. But I do it because I see so many people making excuses for him. I love Coward. I love Joel Klatt. But every time I see them talk about Sark, they're always making an excuse. If Sark loses next week, they will go 4-8. 8 losses will be the most in the history of the program. And it'll be like, oh, we had all these things going against him, all these transfers. I looked at Arkansas, Sam Pittman, who I'm watching the game on Saturday playing Nick Saban. Good game. They competed really well. It was tight. And I went, well, he was going into that game, he was 7-3. He lost, he's now 7-4. I added up the last 3 seasons. They had won a combined 7 games in 3 years. He just won 7. No one's like, well, it's a tough program. It's Arkansas. No fucking excuses. The guy just won 7 games. Another SEC school, guy that worked with Sark, Lane Kiffin, comes from FIU or FAU. I don't even know what school. The little one in Florida takes over Ole Miss, who had been really, really terrible, who had gone 5-7 multiple times before he showed up. You know what Lane's going to do if he beats Mississippi State this year or this week? Rivalry week? Egg Bowl? He'll be 10-2. 10-2. Listen, I know not everyone's locked in to the SEC. He's had a ton of injuries. No excuses. Lane, Sam Pittman, they just won games. No big deal. No one's like, oh, you're not at the best SEC school. You need some transfers. No excuse. But with Sark, it's always like, oh, this guy transferred. They didn't have this guy. Back up. Fucking every school does. You either win or you don't. It's the best part about football. It's such a black and white thing. You either win or you lose. Most of our industries are not like that. Like the podcast business. If I have 1 million people listen, is that success? Is it not? I don't know. What's the baseline? Next month I have 1.5. Next month I have 800,000. I don't know. Like what? There's not necessarily a number. You just want to keep growing and growing and growing. But it's not like I either win or I lose the week. Even you salespeople, like you have a quota. Once you hit the quota, are you just done? Could you do more? Like, it's kind of arbitrarily put. But in football, every week, you either win or you lose. And you won this many games this year. How many games you win the last year? How many games you win next year? It's very quantitative. You either win 5, you win 6, you win 10, you win 12. And some people win and some people lose. And for whatever reason, you can make a million excuses about the University of Texas. And I'm sure everyone will. But where are those excuses for Arkansas? Where are those excuses for Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss? I just don't hear them. You know why? Because you either can produce or you can't. Some guys can either coach, some guys can't, right? It was like, oh, how are the Patriots going to figure this out at 1-3? I don't know. They just did. Now they're 7-4. Well, the Colts, they're 1-3. How are they going to figure it out? Carson Wentz, I don't know. Now they're 7-5 or 6-5. I don't know. They won 6 straight games. How do they do it? I don't know. Frank Reich can coach. Andy Reid, the Chiefs, they're going to fall off a cliff. No, they're 7-4, won 4 straight. He just wins, Injuries, guys out, whatever. You just figure it out. Some guys figure it out, some guys don't. And for whatever reason, and this notion that like he's going to figure it out, I just, based on what? Based on what resume? It's a lot different being a head coach than an assistant coach. And last, I'll end on this. If somehow Alabama beats Georgia, and listen, until Kirby beats Nick Saban, I would not pick Georgia to beat Alabama. So let's just, for argument's sake, assume Alabama beats Georgia. Georgia's in, Alabama's in, and Ohio State wins out. Even though that game against Michigan is going to be very, very interesting this week. Cincinnati will not get in over Notre Dame. They just won't. Money talks, shit walks. Cincinnati would deserve it. They played Notre Dame and they beat them. But this is all about money and television ratings. And Notre Dame in college football would be like the Packers, Steelers, or Cowboys. They're a cash cow. They're a needle mover. So just get ready. Now, there might be a chance if Georgia beats Alabama, you put them both in. And it's Georgia, Ohio State, Cincinnati, Notre Dame. But if both SEC schools get in and Ohio State wins out, I'll promise you they're going to take Notre Dame. There is no chance they are letting in a non-Power 5 team to the country club. I do not care that they beat them. I'm not saying it's right, because it's not. They went there, and they didn't just beat them. I watched that game earlier this year. They kind of housed them in the second half. But this is all about money, and it's all about television ratings. And I wouldn't blame these people for picking Notre Dame, because it's a much bigger draw. Even though Notre Dame probably get their ass kicked against Ohio State or Georgia. Probably wouldn't even be close. Probably be the same with Cincinnati, but they'll get more eyeballs. And that's really all they care about, so get ready. Appreciate everyone listening. Have a great week. I guess I'll talk to you in a day, and talk soon. Peace. Thanks for watching 3 and Out. You can check out the podcast below in the description, and make sure you subscribe right now to the Volumes YouTube channel.